This is Because Teeth Podcast with Greg Santiago and Cody Preble. All right, back again
with another episode E today.
Yes, sir. Dive right in. So today is going to be basically a tie-in off of our last episode. It's going to be a part 2 of talking about being a guy in the dental hygiene field. We're going to share some stories that we have gone through, I guess, in a way. And when I say gone through, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just a good topic to kind of talk about. And yeah, before we get into the topic, though, I do want to say, first and foremost, thank you guys for listening. If you listened to our previous episodes, we are doing a giveaway. I believe we're still going to be running this at this once this episode airs. So we'll still have this giveaway going.
Yeah, because we'll probably run that for a week or so.
Yeah, at least.
So yeah, it'll probably be wrapping up. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you definitely check that out because we'll be wrapping up here shortly.
Yeah, so it'll be kind of like maybe a late after a belated Christmas gift, maybe, if you win the giveaway. So thank you guys, for listening, and hope you guys had a good holiday. Hopefully everybody got floss and toothpaste and toothbrushes in their stocking.
There we go.
And just want to say, hopefully everyone had a good holiday. And
I remember one year for Christmas, I got that's when I actually got my first water pick.
Was it?
And it was before I was in the field, like, doing this, and I loved it.
Did you?
I was so excited for it, yeah.
That's
and my mom knew that. That's why she got it for me.
That's interesting.
And I was trying to think, actually, how many years ago that was. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's kind of...
I would say it was probably at least 3 or 4 years ago, and looking back on it now, it's kind of funny.
Comes full circle now, like as far as like now thinking about it, you're like, wow, I actually really like that.
Because I've always been interested in teeth and loved going to the dentist.
Yeah.
So that was kind of another way I got into this a little bit. It was good. I was my friends always made fun of me because I was the poster child at the dentist. They always loved me coming in there.
Really?
Because I had good teeth and like, oh, you're doing a great job. Like, keep it up. And
you got your A+
it got
when
to
you
my
left
head,
there?
yeah.
But yeah, so I know for me, I always get, family members and stuff like toothbrushes for Christmas and things like that. But I don't have any stories. Like my mom never really got me like toothbrushes or anything like that growing up in my stocking. It was always hygiene stuff, but never toothbrushes specifically. She would get me deodorant, shampoo, that kind of stuff, which I liked because, for the most part, like she would get me like the 5-pack of deodorant. So I didn't have to buy deodorant for like a whole year. So literally, I guess that's the point of stocking. Stock up, right? Yeah. But yeah, so hope everyone had a good Christmas, and thank you for tuning in after your holiday. And yeah, let's just dive into the topic today. So I do want to kind of go into the whole, basically, obviously being a guy in dental hygiene, but specifically I want to kind of talk about basically like what's an awkward experience for us. And what I mean by that is, obviously, there's not too many guys that go into dental hygiene specifically. Very common for obviously dentists to go, males and to become dentists. But I want to kind of like, I guess, tell our story about like what was an awkward conversation that maybe you have had with somebody or family member or something that you're kind of maybe a little bit hesitant or you felt awkward, because that does happen. Like even for me, like I'll tell my story, but I want to ask you first. Yeah.
So at first I remember when I knew this is what I wanted to do, I was kind of, like you said, hesitant to tell my friends, my roommates who I was with at the time, because they knew what I was doing before. And I don't know really why I was hesitant on it, but I just didn't know how they would take it. They're in other industries,
that are basically like driven by males, and it's common to it. I guess that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah. And so just going to something like this, I wasn't really sure how they would take it or what their reaction was going to be. And for whatever reason, I was a little bit hesitant about it. But once I told them, it was kind of just in my head more than anything, because they didn't react negatively or... Yeah. And I think the same thing kind of happened with my parents as well. When I told them, I was the same way. I was like, oh, how are they gonna take this? I don't know what to expect. And then I told them, and it was all fine.
So what goes through your head? Like what makes you feel like that timidness of like coming out, like, because it is a female dominated industry? Was that really the drive behind that, or was it just because you weren't sure?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of that, but also just I didn't know how they were going to take it because I didn't know if they could see me doing it.
Gotcha.
Just because it was so much different than what I was doing before. I didn't want them to be like, oh, so why this all of a sudden? Like, I felt like I had to explain myself a little bit.
Yeah. And what were you doing before for people that maybe haven't listened to the first episode?
So before I was actually in the rental car business. That's what I did. So I had a bachelor's degree in marketing and then ended up just working at a rental car company for about 2 years. So that's what I was doing. So coming from that and then saying all of a sudden I want to do hygiene, they're like, what are you, like, how did you get here?
Exactly. And it's just, okay, I see what you're saying. It's almost like random in a way.
Yeah. So then at that point, I kind of felt like I was going to have to explain myself because they're like, how did you all of a sudden get to this? Did you just like pick a career out of a hat one day and decide this is what I want to do?
Yeah.
So
we'll dive into that. Like I mean, I think we talked about it on our first episode a little bit, but what really kind of gave you like, okay, I can do this. Like what, there's got to be something that finally was like, you know what, I think I can do this. Did you research? Did you go on YouTube? Did you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was the research. I honestly remember taking those like personality tests, and I did a couple of those, and that's how this came up as just an idea, anyways, because it wasn't something that I thought about. Gotcha. I think we mentioned that before, that it's not really like a common career path to go. So it wasn't something I was consciously thinking about. But then after those tests, I saw it pop up. And then that's when I kind of started to question it. And I remember, just like I said there, I used to just love going to the dentist and getting toothbrushes and taking care of my teeth. So when I thought about that, and I was like, oh, this is popping up on here for a reason.
Yeah.
And kind of looked into it, like I said before, the using my hands and something like that. It just really caught my interest.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess that's really it. And then I just went for it. You know,
it's so funny because I love hearing that answer, because that's a very, very common answer as far as like, why do you get into dentistry, or what drove you to the dental field? And I feel like that's definitely like obviously our one of our gists behind the podcast and interviewing people is we're gonna ask them like why did they get into dentistry? And I'm not gonna say most of the time, but I'm going to say 50% of people at least, are going to say, because I like teeth, or, I like to go to the dentist kind of thing.
And I don't have like the most perfect teeth out there. So, I mean, I've got my flaws, but, because I know with the patient that I had, they're probably like, oh, your teeth are probably perfect because they can't see them with the mask on and everything. And I'm like, they're not. I take care of them. Yes. But I've never had braces. I don't have a perfect smile, but it's fine with me.
Well, one thing you're going to learn, like once you get into the field, you're going to want more of it, especially like you being surrounded. I mean, not that we're not surrounded by it all day, but we definitely like have our breaks, and stuff. But when you're doing it, like you want it, you're going to start like, okay, like I want to fix everything in my mouth. Like I want it to be perfect. Like, because you got to keep in mind, like it's not really being a hypocrite, but it's also like, you can't kind of guide patients without you doing it yourself either.
You're a bit of a role model.
Exactly. Like you're going to be an example. Yeah. Like you want to have that kind of, I wouldn't say, I think it's hard to get a perfect smile. And I think there's a huge,
what is perfect?
Exactly. Gateway of the understanding of what's perfect and what's healthy.
Yeah.
And that's a big kind of topic, I guess, that I always talk to patients. Like, obviously every patient wants white teeth, straight teeth, and that's it. But you don't always, like you said, you don't have to have that. As long as you have a healthy mouth, that's the goal.
Yep.
If you want to do that other stuff, there's ways. There's a lot of different, opportunities or, things that we can get it there, but you're going to learn when you get in the field. You're going to be like,
you're probably right.
And the other thing that I guess I wanted to share my story about that was, I kind of had a little bit of an awkward thing. It was more with my dad, to be honest with you. So my dad is basically, he owns a security business. So he does any and everything when it comes to physical labor. He's kind of like a handyman. And when I say that, he can do anything. Like he can probably build a house if he really wanted to. Like he's got, the tools, and he's done that his whole life. But his actual like job is he's a locksmith.
Okay.
As far as like, he owns a security business. And the reason why I say security is because he does like cameras. He does other things other than just unlocking doors and making keys and that kind of stuff, even though that's kind of like the heart of it, But yeah, so it was hard. It wasn't, okay, I'm not going to say it was hard for me to tell him because I'm not like shy about it at all, but it was a little bit awkward for me because first and foremost, like I think every son and dad, maybe not every son and dad, but you know, a lot of it is like you want your son or your kids to kind of follow in your footsteps. Like you want to kind of open that gateway and give them what you're building or what you built, you know, kind of thing. And like I said, my dad has pretty successful business. I mean, when I say that, I mean he hasn't worked for anybody. He owns his own business since he was 20 years old, you know, so he would obviously like to pass that to me, but I just didn't see myself doing it. And all growing up, I worked with him, you know, like summer breaks, even when I was in like grade school. I remember I started very early, like I'm going to say like 5th, 4th grade. Like I legit worked with my dad. I mean, obviously I just did what he told me kind of thing.
Yeah, you weren't doing anything crazy.
Nothing crazy. I wasn't going on jobs with myself in 5th grade, but you know, I was on a ladder drilling in, you know, things at, you know, the age, you know, what was that? Probably like 10, 11 years old, something like that. But yeah, and I remember I was like legit working at that age where most kids aren't really kind of doing that stuff. And I just knew, like, I guess maybe doing that early, it kind of showed me that I didn't want to do physical labor.
Okay.
And it's also too kind of funny to tie in too, because even be a dental hygienist, it is physical labor.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, it takes a toll on our body. There's a lot of things that maybe people don't see that part of it. Obviously, we're not going to go in there and complain and say, oh, you know, let me have you, you know, sit this way because my neck's hurting today. Or we don't really say that. We just kind of guide them to that. But it takes a toll on our body. And that was my mindset. And especially like, obviously growing up in Florida and stuff, like I didn't want to be in the heat. Like if there was a physical labor job, most of them are going to be in some form of heat. Like you're not going to have a physical labor job in cold AC and and also the rain, you know, where when I was 18, I started valeting and we had to valet in the rain. Like I was like, you know, I want something indoors that I can go home at 5 o'clock. I don't have to work at the weekends. Yeah. That was like kind of my drive becoming, you know, like originally like becoming a dentist. Like I wanted just something that I can be family oriented and that kind of thing, start my own family and not have to worry about, you know, Saturday and Sunday, I still have to work kind of thing. But yeah, that was kind of my thing. And it was a little bit weird when I first told him, and I'm going to say even till this day, he's probably has that, like, I'm not going to say grudge, but I think he would have liked to see me like taking his footsteps.
Yeah. Kind of like a what if you would have chose this versus that.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyways, so I told him, I said, listen, hey, I waited till I was like, kind of like what you said, like until you were going into it. I waited till I was like in dental assisting school before I told him. Yeah. I didn't live with my dad. You know, my mom, my dad are separated. So I lived with my mom at the time, and I just kind of went through everything and finally started. And I said, hey, like, I'm going to become a dental assistant. And even when I told him that, he kind of like looked at me sideways in a weird way. Like I just felt it, like, you know, when you know, like that aura, you know, I was like, hey, like I'm going dental assisting school. So I'm going to be basically, at the time I was still taking prereqs and I was in dental assisting school. So I was like basically in 2 schools, and I was, still kept up managing a valet at that time. So I was still working full time. So I was doing all this stuff. So I really didn't have too much time to really like have that conversation with him. Like we good kind of thing, you know, at the same time, because it is like an awkward.
Yeah. Well, I remember I didn't tell my mom about it. I think I want to say, like you were saying, I didn't do it until I was already in doing the prereqs. And I think I just wanted to not have anyone's opinion on it and kind of really sell myself and be like, you know what, this is what I want to do, and without having their opinions. So I just kind of started the process, and then I told them, and it was like, however they take it, this is what I'm going to do regardless. Yeah. So that's why I kind of did that. Yeah. Took that approach on it.
And exactly. You said it perfect. That was my mentality with my dad. But, you know, with my mom, the complete opposite. Like, my mom's super supportive, like, no matter what I did. I will say that she kind of drove me to dental. It wouldn't be, like, specific hygiene or assistant or dentist or anything. But she just told me, she's like, please become anything in the healthcare field. I don't care what you do. Yep. That's literally what was her words for me. Like, when I got out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet. I was still just, like, kind of, like, in limbo, like, couldn't figure out in high school like what my thing was, because I played sports my whole life. That stopped in high school. And then, you know, after that, it was just kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do other than let me just go to school and figure something out kind of thing. And she said, just go something healthcare, you know. And that was like my mindset. Like, I guess even in high school, I was like, that's gonna be in the back of my head. Like, so that stuck with me, and I guess dental was that outlet for it.
Yeah. And I remember that was one thing that my mom told me after I had told her that's what I wanted to do. Just being in the healthcare field, it's very stable. It's a lot more stable. We kind of touched on that in another episode too. But that was kind of one other thing of a reason I think that I gave of why this is something that I wanted to do versus what I was before. It's always stable. You're going to be working on. You're always going to have patience. Basically, you're never going to run out.
Yeah.
And actually, especially now with it all growing as much as it is.
It did. That's what I was just about to say, because, first and foremost, like, this is a perfect way to kind of bring it full circle about the physical part on your body. I'm not going to say almost every, but there's a good amount of hygienists that they get into hygiene and then they don't want to do clinical anymore because of the toll it takes on your body. Yeah. So everyone thinks you're just showing up to I don't know. I can't speak on the perspective of outside patients' view of
it might be a question for them.
Yeah, that would be a good question. But, it takes a big toll on our body, as far as like, vision as well. Like if you have loops and stuff, like, you doing that for 20 years, like it's going to affect your vision, obviously we talked about like the ergonomic part. That's a big part of it. But
even hearing, we've heard from just using like the Cavitron and stuff so much. The sound of that, we've heard that, like, even one of our past professors kind of said it affected her a little bit.
Correct. It will. And I mean, the last part of it would be like the hand-eye coordination. Like it takes a toll on like your wrist, like, you having that motion, obviously you want to do everything correct as far as like the strokes, and it's not like you want to strain your wrist or, any of this stuff, but it happens over time. I mean, no matter how good you are, there's going to be certain days that you are lacking on something or, that kind of stuff, that it's going to take a toll on your body and as a whole. And there's just so many things that people don't understand that part of it. So I think it's a good way to kind of like start off our podcast with this kind of stuff, because even though it might seem like negative in a way that we're talking about like the negatives, there's obviously so much positive.
And being aware of it is the first step in,
because you want to know what you're getting into.
Exactly.
And that's like one of those things that you can talk to everybody about certain things, and we might say this, like me and you might say this about whatever, but everyone's different too. So
correct.
There's some people, I've known hygienists that practiced for 30 years, not a zero backache, not a, no type of, surgery or maintenance or anything, and do nothing, just some people, it just depends. Everyone's different.
Correct.
I can definitely tell you right now that I am not going to be one of those people, but yeah, so I just, and there's ways to like, help it. And there's certain things that we do that we, like, as far as like, I don't know, like it could be something as simple as like acupuncture or something that like helps us, with our posture or whatever it is, whether it's massages or even like back aligners. Like, I don't know. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of
a back aligner?
Yeah.
That's not like the belt that you wear around.
Well,
like,
no,
that's for like people who are,
that's posture,
lifting up things.
Yeah, no. So there's this, like, basically it's kind of like a machine you lay down. It's like, I guess you would call it like a massage table, but it's built into the massage table. And it actually like kind of, it almost feels like a fist or a ball, and it goes in your spine and rolls it out. Which honestly, it was weird. Like at first, I had to do it after my car accident.
Oh, okay.
That was the first thing they put me on. They're like, yep, you're going to take 20, 30 minutes of this. And
so is it like a chair then, like you said?
No, it's a table.
Okay. And you just lay on the table?
You lay on the table, and it's just like a ball, and it just runs through your spine and it rolls it out basically. But anyway, so there's just different things that you can do to kind of help you.
Yeah. And I know definitely once I'm out there, I want to start doing these regularly. I'm going to be on a consistent basis of it. I can already tell.
Yeah. I told you about that cryotherapy. That is, man, life-changing, dude. I got to take you. Hopefully maybe in Tampa.
Yeah, I'm going to try that one of these times.
Yeah. Even if you get a chance, like whenever you go down there, I mean, it takes literally 3 minutes. Like you're literally in and out in
quick.
3 minutes. But it helps your whole body, man. Like you walk out and you're like,
I feel rejuvenated,
to say the least, man. It feels so good. But yeah, that brings it kind of, as far as like outsiders viewing it as like maybe not physical labor, or not, I guess, like manly as a job or a career. There's a lot of it that, that it's just kind of unspoken about because you're just going through that. And I think that's with any kind of physical labor job, because like I even know like my dad specifically, like he takes days off because he had a big job. Like it's a toll on his body.
Yeah.
Like first and foremost, I mean, obviously my dad's older, so he can't do it like he was 20, but he's lifting doors, just different, obviously a lot of different things that he's doing, but it takes a toll and you got to take a break. You got to do these things to, maintenance. So no matter what it is. So I think it's a good way to kind of tie in being a guy basically into the dental hygiene field specifically, But one thing I wanted to talk about basically, especially because of you have huge hands. So let's talk about that a little bit, because as a patient, I mean, I can say that that's never crossed to my mind.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. But I think that some patients will be like, oh, like this is a guy, like he's going extra hard because he's a guy.
Yeah. And I think that's something that even my friends and family members brought up at the beginning of it. When I did tell them I wanted to do this, they're like, okay, well, how are you going to get in somebody's mouth when you have huge hands? Like, what if it's a small mouth? And then it kind of got into my head, like, oh, how am I going to deal with this? Like once we started doing instrumentation, I was like, well, actually, it's not a factor at all, because you usually only have your fulcrum placed.
Correct.
And then you're just reaching in with an instrument. So if anything, I feel like I can access some spots better because my fingers are longer and I can kind of reach back there a little bit more without having to put you're not putting your whole hand in there.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
It's only a finger or two at a time.
Yeah.
And it honestly hasn't played a factor at all.
But I mean, we can talk about the good part of it. I mean, yeah, we probably have a little bit more muscle than, the average, female that is doing hand instrumentation, which it's a benefit for us too. I mean, I can say that maybe sometimes I catch myself like, okay, I'm going a little bit, maybe I wouldn't say too hard, but I can just feel myself tensing up and I'm like, this is definitely like, I'm compensating for something. I'm doing something wrong here. So I can feel that sometimes. But I think that there's also times that it's great because where some, people need, like, let's say the Cavitron on certain teeth because of the calculus is so tenacious, like we might have a little bit of an upper hand with that part of it, and I can definitely say this, like the distal and the third molars, like I know for sure, like I can get back there and I'm like,
yeah,
I got this, kind of thing, because even with the Cavitron, you can't always get back behind that distal.
Correct.
I mean, there's obviously tips that are made for it, which I've tried, by the way, and they're really good. It's just hard to switch. Like in the middle. Like
oh yeah, and because
right
most of the time it's just the universal one that we'll use.
Correct.
Okay.
But anyways, but there's certain things that it is a benefit as well. So, I think that talking about it is a good way to kind of like clear the air in a way that there's a lot of benefits of, us being, like using those, like I said, like the muscle kind of thing. That's a good thing. Yeah,
and like you said, even though people might have like in their head, like, oh, this is a guy working on me, he's gonna tear my mouth up.
Yeah,
it's not like that though.
It's not.
And we can tell when we're using more force and not using it. And a lot of the time, like that doesn't even really play into it.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a different situation using the instruments and everything. It's like the instrument and your little fingers doing their work, not your overall like muscles. Like
you can be yoked and that doesn't mean that you're gonna like tear up somebody's mouth. And honestly, like side note, like talk about like obviously there is like some guys that are yoked. Maybe I wouldn't say I haven't met many dental hygienists yet, which I'm hoping obviously this podcast won't change. But also too, like I can say like I know a couple yoked dentists. Never had a patient complain about anything, like you just, it doesn't play a factor.
It all comes down to your skills and how well that like you can just perfect those little movements that we're doing, and none of it.
It's finesse, and the instruments, they're made that way to do the work for itself.
Yes.
It literally does the work for you. You're just there guiding it.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good way to put it. That way people can kind of think that, and it's not all based on how big or small you are or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the other thing too, like not to say that there's, not yoked girls, but there's yoked girls, and when I say girls, I mean women,
yes,
but like that doesn't play a factor either. You would, like, you're not going to go in there and be like, oh, you're yoked, you're going to hurt my arm, you're going to hurt my mouth. Like, you just,
it doesn't correlate over. It's not a direct correlation.
Yeah.
I think that's the way I want to say it. A relationship. What is it? What's the correlation variable? R? Back to community.
I want to take it back real quick as far as like us talking about like us having like the I guess, the best smile and with the patients and them looking at your smile kind of thing. So before COVID, I had that happen a lot to me. And I obviously, I don't have the best teeth either as far as like aesthetically, like obviously I keep it healthy, but I had a lot of patients like, oh, like, let me see your smile. Cause it almost makes them feel comfortable where it's like, and I tell them, I'm like, look, like as far as like grinding, like I grind really bad. And when I would bring that up to patients, I'm like, trust me, I understand, because you're making that connection with them. And they're like, what do you mean you understand? You probably have perfect teeth. And I would show them, pre-COVID, obviously, that I would show them, I'm like, look, like, no, I wear a night guard every single night because I can't sleep well if I don't.
Yeah. And one other thing to say on that is I think it just goes with like back to the perfect smile. It's the patient's confidence that they have with it.
Yeah. Like, and that's what, I think that's with just about anything, but yeah, having that, they have to have that confidence. So that conversation might not ever come up. Let's say they don't have, cause there's plenty of teeth. If you're just, there's plenty of teeth. There's plenty of people that have, let's say not the best smile or that kind of thing, but long as they're confident, that doesn't matter.
Exactly.
That doesn't bring it up to them. That doesn't affect them. You don't have to go through like, hey, like, making them feel comfortable or making that connection. Like, it's just like, hey, like, we're recommending this, like, this will definitely be better for you. And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Or there's some people that were like, I'm good with my smile or my teeth or whatever, our flaw that we're recommending. I wouldn't say flaw, but whatever they need for their, health, that we're saying that this might be better, this might better benefit them. They just might say, no, I'm good. Like,
that's what I was going for. That's what I was trying to say there.
I appreciate the, what you guys are saying, and I hear you, but this is not the first time I've heard it.
Yes.
So I'm definitely going to just leave it how it is, or, unless there's something that you're telling me that's drastically going to change me, then I'm probably not going to.
Like we said, as long as it's healthy.
That's all that matters.
Exactly. And you're happy with it. So
that's the biggest thing.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up that discussion for today. So let's go ahead and get into dental terms.
Let's go in the segment.
Dental terms 102. All right, so today I'm bringing it back to your favorite subject, pharmacology.
Oh man, let's do it.
All right. So,
disclaimer, not my favorite subject at all. But go ahead. Sorry, I had to say that.
So based on it's around a prescription, right?
Okay.
So what does the Cigna part of the prescription show?
Cigna?
Cigna.
Okay, I don't remember that at all. That's in like the part of like the directions of what it means, or
correct. So yeah, there's like the heading, the body, the closing of it, and there's a part, or it's on the actual prescription. It shows up as Sig. All it is SIG, but it stands for Cigna. I didn't know that.
Okay, I was gonna say I didn't know it stood for Cigna. So now that you say SIG, I definitely have seen this 1,000 times, but I can't remember. If I had a prescription in front of me, I might be able to.
Yeah, and then when I thought about this, I was like, well, then that health, the insurance company, Cigna. I was like,
oh, it makes perfect sense.
It all tied it back in for me.
Well, it is spelled different.
It is. It's with a C.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. But all right, so the Cigna part of the instruction is the instruction for the patient on how to take the prescription.
Gotcha.
So like
orally.
Exactly. How many times a day? That. And then I guess another follow-up part is like, what part of it is it found in? Like we said, there's the heading, the body, the closing. Do you know what part the Cigna is found in?
It's got to be like the body or the heading.
It's in the body. You're correct. Yeah, the body is where you have the drug name, the dispense number, Cigna, and then the heading, of course, you have the name, date, address. So that's where like the patient information is, and then down in the closing. So that was what I had today, just breaking down the parts of the prescription.
That was a good one.
Yeah. So I know we kind of went real quick in pharmacology. So when I saw that the other day, I was like, oh, that's a good question.
I want to say that was like the very beginning when we were breaking down the label, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely got to brush up. I haven't started studying pharmacology because I know I have to really dedicate some time and energy. And what I mean by that, it's going to take everything out of me. That's why I've been waiting for break, so
I'm getting all those endings and
because it gets, and even the other day I was looking at Actually, I think it was on our exam. It was something about the names of the, I want to say, was it the carpules? It had something to do, and the endings were all different, and they were all together. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm used to like it being the same, kind of thing as, what the ending OL is, like that. But at the same time, like this one was like all over, and I'm like, oh great, this is gonna be like it's gonna take a lot out of me. So, but yeah, that's my plan for break for sure. But yeah, so that was a good one, Cody.
Thanks. I knew I had to back it up from last time, so
Yeah, that was a good one.
came in on you there.
All right. Well, that wraps up basically this episode. We want to thank you again, and make sure you're following us on, social media. If you're listening to us on the podcast, if you're following us on YouTube, please subscribe. Or if you're listening to us on YouTube, please subscribe so that way you can see when our episodes are going up. They will be going up basically twice a week. That's what we're shooting for right now. It might pick up a little bit for a little while, maybe in the next year might have a little bit more, episodes and stuff. So yeah, so just make sure you're subscribed, and that way you can, see when we're posting them all.
Correct.
And if you guys have any recommendations on dental terms,
always,
shoot us a message. You can comment on the video if you're on YouTube. You can even directly email us. Our email is because.teeth@gmail.com. On YouTube, it's Because Teeth. If you're, want to look us up on YouTube, it's just basically going to be our audio for right now, but we'll hopefully get some video podcasts in the future. And yeah, on Instagram also too, by the way, it's because.teeth, just so you know, anyone listening, so that way you know what to look up, not just Because Teeth, it's because.teeth. So don't forget the period between. And other than that, I think that wraps up this episode, and look forward to the next episode.
Yep.
What episode is going to be next?
Episode F.
Episode F. That's got to be a good one.
Yeah, we'll see what we're bringing to the table that day.
All right.
We'll see you then. Why do we do it?
Because teeth.